Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Dust session for builders around MCP. We have a lot of people coming in today, so we'll be waiting for another minute or two to make sure everybody's here since the beginning of the session. So I'll pop my head back in about a minute and we'll get started. Okay, let's get started. Welcome to this session. It's going to be quite technical session depending on the results of the poll that we'll do at the beginning of the session to make sure that everybody's on the same page on what we want to talk about today. We have a lot of people. We have about 300 people registered to the webinar. So we'll start with a short presentation of what Dust is doing to make sure everybody knows what we're talking about. And then we'll talk directly about MCPs. Okay, so what Dust is doing in very short, we are an AI agentic operating system. So basically you are able to create agents without code. You just give a set of instructions, a set of data sources, a set of tools, and your agents are going to be able to do a bunch of things. And these tools just got expanded a lot with the apparition of MCP, which wasn't possible before. So the protocol is quite new, and we just released a ton of new features with it. So Dust is basically in the middle of where you work. So you can connect it to a lot of things, being Slack, Notion, Google Drive, Confluence, Salesforce, etc. You can talk to your agents directly through a chat interface, a bit like Claude AI or ChatGPT, or you can actually plug them inside of your workflows. So you can plug them through Zapier, Make, or directly through API calls. And they're able to actually take action directly in some of your existing software, like Zendesk, or directly in your Chrome browser through a Chrome extension, etc. So a ton of things that can be done with Dust. I won't spend a lot more time on this, but just making sure that everybody knows what Dust is, if some people here haven't heard of us. Let's get to work. I want to start this little webinar with a poll. So if you can please answer those one of those questions. So for now, we have about 70 people that answer, which is half of the people present. So I'll wait a little bit more to make sure that we are on the same page. So we see that most people don't know much about MCP, so it's mostly a curiosity thing. If you're here, don't hesitate to answer questions in the chat. We have 3 people from Dust that are connected and ready to answer. We have Pauline, Rémi, and Seb. I'll put them all in the screen right now so they can say hello. Let me remove the poll for now. And yeah, they'll be ready to answer all your questions in the chat. I'll wait for a few minutes to make sure the poll is answered by pretty much everybody. We have about 100 answers now, so I guess we're getting there. So we are about 70% of the people that don't know much about the protocol, and about 25% of the people that have more experience. So we'll try to be a bit on the linear curve during the webinar. We'll start pretty slow to understand what MCP is. And then at the end of the webinar, we'll actually show the full power of it, and we'll try to build an MCP server to make it work. And that we just worked on it with Seb, so we'll hope that things will work correctly. Cool. All right, so what is MCP? Basically, people love to describe MCP as the USB for LLMs. So it means that it's a universal plug for LLMs to be able to use a bunch of APIs or tools or data sources behind it. Before MCP, it's what you can see on the left here. Every tool or every data source or every API had to be connected single-handedly to an LLM, and that's part of what Dust was doing. So we're basically plugging in a bunch of connectors, a bunch of data, and giving the right data at the right time to the LLM when they answer. An MCP is basically something that would get in between the LLM and all these APIs to be able to have one big pipe that's always the same format. So it's basically a unified API for the LLMs to be able to talk to anything. Basically, it's a universal translator that will help your LLM take action or retrieve information for anything that's behind the MCP box. So the MCP is generating and managing all the connections to all the little tools and all the stuff that's behind it, but the LLM only has one way to talk to the protocol. There's two sides of it because you can see that as a tunnel. Basically, there's an entrance and an exit, and the entrance is what the client is going to be asking the server, and then the server will pull back everything in that tunnel for that client to see. So we have two different set of things in an MCP protocol, a server and a client. The server provides tools. So the server, if you want to flatten out everything, the server can do two things. It can list a tool and it can execute a tool. That's it. Nothing more to know about it. So if you ask the server to list a tool, it's going to send you all the tools that it has available. So for example, it's an MCP. Let's say you've got an MCP server that's managing Google Drive. Well, the list of tools will be, I can list files, I can search for a file, I can open a file, I can edit a file, I can create a new file. And then once the LLM has the list of tools that it can use on the MCP server, it can decide to actually use one of the tools. So the client is going to decide to use a specific tool or not. And when the client wants to use a tool, it will use the parameters that the server has listed in the first action. So whenever you say, I want to create a Google Doc, well, you need to also ship the title of the doc. You need to say the content that you want to give in that doc. You want to say who you want to share that doc with, if you want to share it with anybody. And that's listed in the tool's description when the server first answers the handshake. And then the clients. Basically, when the MCP server, when the MCP protocol started, most of the clients were had to be on your computer. They were not remote, so you couldn't have MCPs that were on the internet somewhere else. You had to run it on your computer. It's not the case anymore. The protocol has evolved quite a lot, and now clients can be pretty much anywhere. So the good thing with that is that applications like Dust can start being clients and can also be servers. We'll talk about that right after. So that's a pretty high overview of how the client-server interaction goes in MCP. So you basically have on your left, there's a host that hosts the client. So it used to be only your personal computer or your machine, but now it could be a server that hosts a website. It hosts the MCP client that talks to the LLM. And then there's an MCP server somewhere else that has a set of tools and resources that is listed whenever the client asks for it, and then that are actually executed when the client wants to execute them. So the server can be connected to a bunch of stuff. So here in this example, you can see a weather API, you can set an email, it can be connected to a database. And then between those two guys, between the client and the server, you need a way, like what we call a transport layer. So it's basically a little truck that will bring the data to from one end to the other. There's two different protocols that you can use for that, transport layers. One of them is STD.io, which is the local protocol, which is the one that you want to use if you're on your own machine. And the one, if you want to use a remote server, so a website or like a platform, is called Streamable HTTP. For a while, it was SSE, so server-side events, but it's just been deprecated because Streamable HTTP is the new version for remote handling. I'm just going to describe a little bit to make sure that everybody understands the demo, how we use it at Dust. And don't hesitate again to ask all your questions in the chat. We've got a bunch of people to answer. I can see that Seb is already pretty active. So yeah, don't hesitate. And if I need to be interrupted to explain something a bit better, Seb will be able to tell me directly. Tap me on the shoulder, is right next to me. Okay, so we've got two ways we want to use MCP at Dust. We can become a server and a client because Dust is able to generate agents that will actually call MCP servers to take actions. So that's Dust as a client. That's the second one. I should have started by Dust as a server, but well, I didn't. So Dust as a client will make your agents be able to call specific tools to take action. That's what we're going to demo today. And Dust will be able to be used as a server as well, meaning that if you want your cursor, for example, or any other tool that uses LLMs and that has MCP capabilities like Cloud AI, Cloud Chat, Cloud Desktop, sorry, you can use Dust and plug it into your cursor or Cloud Desktop for to enhance your experience there and to be able to retrieve data from your Notion, your Drive, and anything that Dust can do directly on the web app. It becomes available in your software. I've got just another last slide to make sure we're clear on what's a remote server and an internal MCP server. So the internal, well, let's start with the first one for now. The remote server is a server that is hosted somewhere else. So it's basically a remote machine that you will connect to, basically an API. It's built by either the platform owner itself. So for example, if you want to use Dust as a server, you will be using the MCP server that we have built. Or it could be built by third parties, Composio, Zapier, Pipedream, etc. There's a bunch of companies that try to build as many MCP servers as they can to make sure that everybody can connect as MCP. So it uses the MCP standardized interface to let you do actions on any of those connections. Or you can also create your own server. And that's what we're going to try to do today. We're going to try to create our own server that a Dust agent will be using to create stuff in a custom backend. And you can build internal MCP servers. So in Dust, basically, we build internal MCP servers, which are pre-made, like available directly in Dust. We don't have to build anything more. You don't have to build anything more. They're inside of Dust, and they have capabilities. So for now, we just have two. Well, we have three now. That slide is not really up to date. We have GitHub, HubSpot, and since today we have Salesforce as well that you can use as an MCP tool. So yeah, I'll let you play around with it if you have a Dust account. And don't hesitate to ask any questions around those to Seb, which is one of the guys that worked a lot on it. Cool. So let's get going on a demo. If you have any questions, again, don't hesitate to ask. So I see questions around security and stuff like that. Either Seb will answer right now, or we'll keep it for the Q&A at the end of the session. There's a lot of stuff happening around authentication and security in the MCP world. It's very new, so things are moving fast. Cool. Let me share my screen and show where we're going to go. I need to remove the slides first. I do not know how to remove the slides. Okay, there we go. Cool. So we've built, for this webinar, we've built a fake dashboard. That's a fake dashboard that we have vibe coded to just show you what what MCP can do, basically. So we've got a dashboard with active customers, open tickets, threat detections, and system uptime. Basically, our demo company, when we try to demo Dust, is a fake security, like IT security company. So it's called Glittery Helmet. And so we've built a backend dashboard for that. We've got customers, we've got tickets, and we've got an API documentation, because this backend has an internal API that we don't want to show to the world, but we want our agents to be able to interact with what's in that dashboard. So we can find a bunch of customers, tech industries, Health System Plus, Global Bank, LTD, etc. We can see their industry, we can see their status, we can see the plan they're in, we can see the number of employees, risk score, etc. And then we've got tickets. So we have a bunch of tickets that have been sent by those customers. So we'll try to actually create a new ticket with an MCP server that will be using as much information as it can from that dashboard and from other sources. So how do we do that? Basically, we have created a Dust agent. So this is the Dust interface for the people who don't know it. And we have created an agent called Glittery Support with a set of instructions that is pretty regular. So your role is to efficiently assist in resolving customer issues by leveraging available tools and resources. Basically, the goal of this agent is to give as much information as possible to the human that will solve the ticket that is received. Basically, we didn't want to show something that will automatically solve tickets. We wanted to show that it's sometimes better to augment the human than to replace the human. Because in a security company, for example, it's not always easy to make sure that you have understood everything that's needed, and maybe just the AI is here to help you and not to actually do the work completely for you. So instructions are pretty small. Getting some examples, it's telling you what to do, and it's telling which tools to use. The interesting part here is that I've got a search tool, which is all the knowledge base and all the previous tickets that I have in my company. So basically, I plugged in my Confluence knowledge base, I plugged in my Notion pages, I plugged in Google Drive, I plugged in Slack, and I plugged in Zendesk tickets as well. And we added the Glittery Helmet backend MCP server that we have built. So we'll see how to build it right after that. But basically, here we're going to show how it works. We're going to show how to use it. So we can see here that we've got two tools in that server, get customers, create a ticket. So whenever an agent is going to try to use that server, Then it's going to ask the server for the list of tools that are available, and then try to use one. So it's going to try to use either get customer or create a ticket. And what I can show here as well is that for the get customers, I set it as low stake in the tool stake, meaning that the user can decide to not be alerted whenever the LLM wants to use that tool. One of the important things with LLMs and MCP is that if you start letting the AI change stuff in your software, you want to make sure it's changing the right thing. For example, if you want to plug an MCP server on your CRM, like on HubSpot or Salesforce, you want to make sure that it's not going to just throw a bunch of data and change a bunch of things that you didn't want it to change. So that's why whenever an LLM wants, like an agent wants to take an action, usually it's going to ask you to take that action, and you have to validate the action or not. But in Dust, we've built this thing where you can say, okay, this action, I'm okay with it without being asked. So here, getting a customer information, it's not going to break anything. So I put it in low stake, so I can avoid being asked too much. Okay, so let's use it. So right now, I want to create a ticket. Let me find, because I've got a prompt that's pre-made, because I'm very organized. All right, so I'm going to ask the agent. I've got this customer that has some issues, and I need to help them make sure that I'm going to solve their issues. So let's just ask. It has issues with user activity reports. It looks like it's missing some data when they're generated. I kind of cheated because I know that in my data somewhere in my other Zendesk tickets, I've got a customer that already had this same issue. So let's see if the agent finds it. So basically, what you're going to see is that the agent is going to first start thinking. You saw here, I don't know if you saw, it took a second. It said using a tool. Yeah, there you go. You see it again. So it's trying to first get customer details. So it's actually using my MCP tool to be able to get the details. It didn't ask me for anything.
Sorry.
Yeah.
J'ai cliqué par erreur. C'est pas le bon bouton. Je vais mettre dans le canal.
Oh. We just need to remove that.
That's
There we go. Okay, so basically the tool, the agent is now asking me to create a ticket. If I want to see what it's going to put in the ticket, I can open the details, and I can see that it's going to say user activity report missing data, and then the user request and a bunch of stuff in the ticket. I'm just going to allow it and see what happens next. So basically what we can see here is that it first used the get customer details tool. Then it had searched for similar issues, and then create a detailed tickets. If I open the tools inspection, I can see the same thing. So basically it got some customers, and then it searched for some data around user activity reports. And then it actually created a ticket. So let's go back to our dashboard. Here I can see my ticket showing up. Activity report missing data. Well, there's a second one because I created one right before the webinar to make sure everything worked. But this one was created at 15:26, which is right now. So if I open it, I can see the user request. TechCorp is reporting that their user activity report appears to be missing data when they're generated. The customer details that we pulled from our backend, and then context from recent discussions. So you can see that we had a bunch of similar issues, maybe related to personal agent data not appearing correctly. There's technical impact, additional notes, customers and enterprise plus plan. So there's advanced analytics, etc., etc. And then the agent gives me recommended next steps. That's pulling from a lot of different sources. So we didn't have time to actually explore the sources in that backend, but I should. That this is a source that I should parse, and I should show the sources somewhere behind this, below this. Sorry, but not happening because we just built that in a day, and yeah, if we want to keep going on that backend because it's lovely, we'll do that. But just for the demo, we're not actually showing the sources. But yeah, so basically here our server just worked. We have something that actually generated data in a custom backend tool that we built without having to actually build any tool for the LLM itself. We just said, okay, here is the MCP server, and the LLM instantly knows how to use it. Okay, so do we have any questions that we want to answer before we actually dive in the code a little bit, or we're fine? Looks like we're fine. We'll see with the Q&A at the end. Okay, so let's switch to the code then. This is a server that we've deployed on Versal, so it's very easy to deploy. We actually got it by typing Versal MCP server on Google. So if you arrive on that page, you can click here on deploy, and it just deploys like a fake MCP server, and you just have to change the tools and what they do, and then you're ready to go. So it's actually pretty easy to build an MCP server if you have a bit of technical knowledge. Have to go too far. Okay, so let's look at the code. Basically, one of the things that we won't talk about too much because it gets into a little bit more technical details. Seb might answer anything around this because he worked on it quite a lot today, is authorization. Basically making sure that your agent has the right permissions to be able to talk to your MCP server is something still that has quite a lot of fuss around it. Now the protocol that's being plebiscited for that is the OAuth protocol, but there's still possibilities of authorization bearer tokens and stuff like that, or nothing at all. So if you use tools like Composio, for example, they're going to create a specific URL for you, and that URL will contain the authorization. So if anybody finds that URL, they'll be able to use the MCP server behind it without having to authenticate. So that changes, but for now, we won't talk about it too much today. What we want to talk about is how easy it is to create a tool. So basically, Versal and Anthropic. So Versal has created a wrapper around the Anthropic MCP SDK. But basically what Anthropic has done is to provide an SDK that allows you to just say, okay, I want to instantiate a server, and then I'm going to add tools. And each tool is going to be defined with a name. So here we've got a tool called get customers, a description, what the tool can do. So here that tool can say that the tool can get all customers' details. And then the actual code that runs the tool. So here it's super easy. It's just a fetch customers using the right authentication. So we've actually, I'm going to go back to my dashboard because I haven't showed that, but we actually have a real authentication system that works. If I want to create like a webinar, a new token. I've created a new webinar token, and that's the token that my server is expecting whenever I'm talking to it. So yeah, here basically my get customers tool will provide the token that we just created to the API and send the data, which is, I don't need anything because we're getting all the customer details. So I don't have any parameters that I want to send because that's a demo. But of course, like if you have a lot of customers, if you have a lot of data, then you need to search for a specific name or paginate or whatever you want. Then answering with the data. Is error is false, content is text. And if it fails, then is error is true and content is the error message. Then we've got a second tool, which is a bit more complicated because this one has data. The tool is named create a ticket. The description is create a ticket. I don't think we can do simpler than that. And then these are the parameters that you want to send to the ticket API, because the API is an endpoint that is waiting for some parameters, one of them being the customer ID. So the LLM needs to understand that to be able to get that customer ID, you need to first call the get customers API to be able to have the customer ID, and then use the right one. The ticket title, the priority, so only a few possibilities. It's not going to put anything else. The category as well, then describe the actual ticket and assign it to somebody, but that's optional. So I didn't ask to assign it to me. If we go back to the ticket, was it assigned to anybody? No, it's not. It's unassigned. So if I wanted to assign it to me, I could have just said and assign it to me, and then it would be assigned to me directly. So it's actually pretty powerful. And yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it. That's what an MCP server is. So this one is one of the simplest versions because we've just deployed it on Vercel and they have this wrapper, and so you just need to work out the tools. But once your MCP server is running, that's pretty much it. So if we want to actually inspect what the server looks like, I'm just going to take that URL, which is the URL of the server. If I open the page, I pretty much see nothing. But if I open the MCP inspector, which is a tool that Anthropic provides to be able to inspect what the MCP you're building is actually answering. And I'm going to try to connect. Well, it's basically telling me, okay, the MCP server is not working, but that's also because I did not provide any bearer token. So that's where the demo effect will likely come in place. Let's hope this works. Yeah, there we go. So I connected to my MCP server through the what's called the MCP inspector that Anthropic has released. I put my bearer token. My MCP server was like, okay, I can let you through. And now I can see that I've got one thing to do, which is list tools. So I'm going to list the tools, and now I can see my tools. So I've got my get customers. I can run it. If I run it because I have no parameters, I just run it, then I've got all the customers that are in that backend. So I can see that Tep Corp Industries, I can see the features that they have registered to, etc. And I can create a ticket, but this one needs all the parameters that we just showed. That's how you create an MCP server. That's how you make sure your MCP server is working. And yeah, I think we're pretty much done with the demo. We have about 20 minutes left, a bit more than 20 minutes left for the questions. I see that the chat is going on pretty heavily. So don't hesitate to ask if you haven't understood something, if you want me to talk a bit deeper about something. And I'll stop sharing my screen for now to go back to the Q&A. All right. Okay, let's take by order of votes. All right. So John, seems like a lot of servers assume you're you, and you could be overly permissive if you want to share an MCP server. Will the upcoming upflow change address this and work without private spaces per user? You want to answer that, Seb? Or?
Sure. Can you hear me? Yes, a lot of question about authentication. Obviously, we are going to add the OAuth. The user will be able to authenticate itself via the usual panel where you say I authorize access to my information, etc. And yes, it will also enable personal, what we call personal tools, which mean a tool that will discover the user connection at when it's first used. And I think another question was about Gmail or Google Calendar, and both of these are coming soon. And you will be able to authenticate as yourself when using the tool for the first time. And so you'll be access to your own calendar event, your ability to add your calendar event to your own calendar, your own emails, etc., etc. So yes, this new flow will allow this, and we will work without private spaces.
Yeah, so basically, one of the main things is that at the beginning of using a tool, you'll have to connect using OAuth. And once that's done, then we won't bother you anymore, but we'll know who you are every time.
So I think it answers also Florent's questions as well. And let me know if not the case. Blah, blah, blah.
This one, how do you handle security around MCP servers?
No, that's a different one. It was Florent. So this one, Florian, I saw the thing too.
Sorry.
So for those who don't know, the idea is that you have an MCP server connected to GitHub. So that's the security issue they have. And the MCP server will read an issue in a public repo, and the public repo has an issue with malicious instruction that will lead the agent to go to private repo that he has access as well, and write like the private information so in that private repo in a file somewhere in the public repo, because the GitHub MCP server is supposed to be able to read issues and write files in the repo. And how do we handle that? So a couple of things that we do is that we when it's only the admin that can add MCP server to Dust right now, and they have to once they have added the MCP server, all the tools of the MCP server are listed, and the admin can say whether it's a low stake tool or a high stake tool, default being high stake. And if it's an high stake tool, the user is always prompt to agree to an action, whether it's reading or writing. And if it's a low stake tool, the user is prompt and he can say, don't ask me again, but he will be prompt the first time. Which means that unless the user has said, don't ask me again, if the admin says writing a file is low stake, which it shouldn't do because it's high stake, then, and the user has said, don't ask me again, this scenario could happen. But you need we added some level of security there. Does that answer the question?
I think so. All right, Alexander, what will happen to Dust apps in the future? Dust apps are not going to evolve too much. We don't believe it's the actual full future of agents for now. We prefer to focus more on MCP, and so MCPs can be used by agents directly. So we don't really see a point of having Dust apps being able to call MCPs. So yeah, the answer is basically no, but Dust apps are not going to go away because there's a lot of people relying on them. But MCP is a lot more unified than what Dust apps are.
And if I may, in the long run, we hope to remove Dust app and have like MCP server that we run for you to replace them. But since Dust app has a broad application right now, to replace them with the same level of features by MCP Server. We take a little bit of time and we postpone that work.
Is there a way to send a file, an image, for example, from a Dust agent to an MCP client?
I would have to check. I believe if you're saying that you expect a file as a base 64 data as one of the parameters of your MCP server, I guess. I guess you want to say MCP server instead of client here. I think it should work. I'm not 100% sure. I think it should work if you upload the file in the conversation and then say, send the file to my MCP tool, whatever.
How did you implement the low stake part in the MCP server? Is it part of the textual description of the tools, or is it natively part of the protocol?
Neither of those two answers. We decided that the power should be in the hand of the admin, as I said before. So we asked the admin to decide. And if the admin doesn't decide anything, we take the most secure decision. So it's not part of the protocol because even it's not really something that could be protected. Like any server could say, I'm nice, and then switch to a malicious behavior. So it's a chain of trust. We think that user trusts the admin and the admin trusts the server. And ultimately, our tools, you trust us. So that's how we implemented it.
If I have an MCP server deployed on Cloud Run, how do I add this server to Dust? How do I authenticate Dust to call the server?
I don't know the specific of Cloud Run. If it's a bearer token, it should be just adding the bearer token. I guess if it's Google authentication, I feel like it's OAuth and it should come soon, but I'm not 100% sure how to answer that one.
Yeah, so basically, if it's OAuth, we'll have it ready in the next few weeks. If it's really Google specific stuff, then it won't work. But I would think that it's more on an OAuth thing than Google specific. You're showing Vercel for the demo. Any useful tools you would recommend to create an MCP server somewhere else? Well, basically, it's just an application. So it's it could be like there's like I think Anthropic released a TypeScript SDK and a Python SDK, so you can run that pretty much anywhere else. We chose Vercel because it was easy. We could have chosen Netlify, FlyIO, pretty much anything. So yeah, there's no real answer to that. There's a ton of examples. There's a ton of SDKs you can use. Can you add an MCP on top of a GraphQL server? I would say so. Basically, if we come back to, well, I won't reopen the code, but the code is just a wrapper saying the tool is actually making a call to this API. And so the call that we did was to REST API, but it could definitely be to a GraphQL API.
I think that you don't want your tools to be too generic. Like GraphQL might work, but you need to show somehow to the model what data it can use, what can it query, and so it's a bit more involved than just saying, okay, you can execute whatever.
We've gotten one with a ton of votes. Should we spend time developing MCP servers for Notion, Metabase, etc., or are you going to work on most common tools? Do you have the list of upcoming built-in MCP servers you may develop somewhere? So we will work on a lot of MCP servers. We don't have a current list because the list depends on the number of people asking for it. Basically, we need to prioritize. We're still a small team, even if we're growing quite a lot. But MCP tools are going to be a lot faster than connectors to build because a lot of customers have been asking for connectors for a while, and we would just say that we can't build them because of the capacity of the team. It's not going to be the case for tools because it's a lot faster to build. So we'll prioritize. Just tell us which ones you want. Why do you want them? The use cases, etc. Because it's easy to say that we're going to build a tool, but it's hard to build it right. We want to make sure that the tool is going to, well, the MCP server that you build a ton of tools on top of it. All the tools are going to be useful, and that they're not the server is not going to be missing the right tools that you need to do your use case. So tell us what you need, tell us why you need it, and then that will give us a lot more bullets to be able to build the right thing at the right time. Can you speak about how we can expose our Dust agents as MCP servers? I kind of lied when I said it's already ready, because it's not ready yet, but we'll be able to pretty soon.
It's almost ready. There is part ready. Like
Yeah,
go
for it.
We have the Dust CLI, but I think it's for like technical people.
Yeah.
But you can start the Dust command line interface and ask it to expose one of your Dust agent as an MCP server locally. And so you can connect your cursor, your VS Code or other tools that expect MCP or Cloud directly to a Dust agent. I think it's on npm. If you look for Dust CLI, you will find it on the internet.
So basically, for now, we've got a developer-friendly version ready. For the rest of the world, we'll have to wait a little bit.
Yeah,
more.
we were waiting to have the authentication part of MCP is quite recent, and when we built all our stuff, it was still in flux. Now the dust has settled, and so we're gonna probably allow to generate remote MCP server with a proper authentication flow directly from the web app without all the technical knowledge required. But it's quite recent.
So the question is pretty long and it's going to be truncated, but the interesting part is actually truncated. So basically, John is curious on how the Dust team will approach when to index data, like with Google Drive, versus query real-time data with MCP going forward. That's a quite complicated question that we're also answering ourselves. So we might have to actually duplicate the work on some connectors versus some MCPs, because semantic search is not provided by some of the APIs that you would be using with MCP. So sometimes you'll have to use semantic, like an internal RAG in Dust, and sometimes you'll have to use the MCP to actually create stuff in the same place. So I don't have a straight answer for that, unfortunately. But that's something that we'll have to strategize on our side, definitely. And for the people who've been using the Salesforce connector in the last month or so, you've seen that it actually moved to an MCP tool last week. So yeah, that's kind of, we don't have a straight way to answer that for now, and it's going to be case by case, basically. I've got the most votes on this one. The server demo showed how you define the tools. How does the server know how to execute those actions and talk to the corresponding destination API? Well, let me open my screen again then. I need to come back to the code.
I think the answer is the magic of the LLMs. If I understand the question correctly, Justin, while Alban is looking for the code, it's the LLM that understands what is the correct action to take, and then it would ask the MCP server to execute that action with the correct arguments, and that MCP server will do the destination API call, take the answer, and give it back to the model, the LLM. Does that answer your question?
So just to complete Seb's answer, basically when you define a tool, you're going to give it parameters, so title, customer ID, priority, etc. here, and then you define what to do with it. So here, it's actually running a post request on a REST API with all the parameters that were sent, and getting the response back and making sure that the agent has the right response. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It's like the magic in all this is that the LLM will decide which parameters to send. That's pretty much it. Do you plan to add tools like MCP Scam to inspect MCP usage? That's not something we've talked about too much for now. The MCP world is moving fast, and we've been hard at actually building tools. So for now, I think we'll be mostly building the right tools for our customers to be able to use, and then we'll think about all that. Okay. Yeah.
It was a half-half on this one.
Okay, so does everyone understand semantic search versus text search? So just to make sure that you guys understand the difference, when you search on Google, well, maybe not anymore, but when you used to search on Google, it was searching for keywords. So if you're searching for a keyword specifically, it's going to try to find the actual word. So for example, if you're searching for a specific ticket number in your Zendesk search bar, then you're going to find the right ticket number. If you're searching for the same ticket number in a semantic search, so if you're asking for an agent to retrieve the content of ticket 1156, it's not like if you've plugged a semantic search tool, it's not going to find it. The main reason is that semantic search is using meaning instead of using words. So it's going to try to find something that has the same meaning that your question. And there's like a ton of math around this, but basically it's creating little galaxies of what we call vectors, and it's going to try to put your question in one of those galaxies and try to find the answer that's the closest to your question. So if you just input a ticket number, it's going to say, oh, that's a number. I'm just going to put it in the galaxy of numbers and then just pull one of the numbers from there. And so it's not going to take the right ticket. So yeah, basically that's the main difference. It's that if you do semantic search, it's going like you could type pretty much any synonym, you can type wrongly, you can type in a different language, it's going to find your answer because of the meaning. If you do text search and you type in a different language, it's not going to find your answer. I hope that was clear. Cool. There's just one last question in the Q&A. We have 5 minutes left. The just-in-time seems helpful for permissions. It would be nice for Slack, for example, to get all the private stuff I can see and augment answers. Is that kind of thing on the roadmap? I'm not sure to completely understand. Seb, if you want to.
I think John is asking if Slack is coming as an
MCP tool.
Yes, with personal connection, and the answer is yes, probably.
Yeah, probably.
It's definitely something that seems useful when you want to do a full agentic workflow where the end result would be to write something in Slack for you. That's why that's the reason that's pushing me to add it. And yes, John, you can then look at your own data. The problem that you will have here is that the tool cannot run for long, and usually the search are not exhaustive. So as Alban was talking about with semantic search versus text search, the Slack tool will probably find like your last conversation or something like that, or like 10 days of conversation, but you won't be able to find that piece of content that is in a conversation 2 years ago. That's where RAG and semantic search is pretty efficient, unless it's something that Slack provides as an API.
All right. I think we're pretty much done for the day. I don't see any more questions to answer. So thank you very much for attending. Thanks for everybody who answered in the chat. Thanks, Seb, for being here. Thanks, Pauline, and thanks, Remy, for the moderation. And we'll see you at the next builder session, or we've got some events coming up. We've got an engineering night. If any engineers are around and that want to join, I actually don't exactly remember when it is. But yeah, check our events pages, and the engineering night is on June 11th. If you want to come and talk to us and you're in Paris and you're an engineer, don't hesitate to show up. All right, thank you very much. You've got all the links necessary. Join our Slack community. We've got a pretty active Slack community. We want feedback from you. We want to know what you want to build with Dust. We want to know what you want to build with MCPs. We've got a lot of people that are ready to talk to you. So don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you very much, guys. Remy has shared, again, the Slack community link, and we want to see you there. Bye-bye.